Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Secretary, has this meeting been advertised according to law?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it has.
Joan, roll call, please.
Mr. Diadio.
Here.
Mr. Newton.
Here.
Mr. Travisano.
Here.
Mr. Palento.
Here.
Ms. Fisher.
Here.
Mr. Delina.
Here.
Councilwoman Kilpatrick.
Here.
First order of business, approval of minutes from prior meetings held on September 18th. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion we approve on roll call.
Is there a second?
Excuse me, Mr.
28.
Chairman, what was the date that you said?
September 28th, 2017.
Thank you.
Second motion.
Unless there were people who weren't here. and had
Mr.
to
Chairman,
abstain.
for the record, I did review the tape and also reviewed the minutes prior to coming.
Tape is enough. All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Diadio.
Yes.
Mr. Newton.
Yes.
Mr. Travisano.
Yes.
Mr. Palento.
Yes.
Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
Mr. Delina.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kilpatrick.
Yes.
Next order of business, 6A, authorization for payment of bills, non-NL. That's A through K. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion we approve on roll call.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Diadio.
Yes.
Mr. Newton.
Yes.
Mr. Travisano.
Yes.
Mr. Palento.
Yes.
Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
Mr. Delina.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kilpatrick.
Yes.
Next order of business, 6B, authorization for payment of bills, NL-related non-escrow, to be paid when funds are available. Can I have a motion? What?
Make a motion we approve on roll call.
Second.
Mr.
Roll call, please.
Diadio.
Yes.
Mr. Newton.
Yes.
Mr. Travisano.
Yes.
Mr. Palenta.
Yes.
Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
Mr. Delina.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kilpatrick.
Yes.
Next order of business, 6C, authorization for payment of bills to be paid from escrow accounts, to be paid only if escrow funds are available, and that's M through R. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion we approve on roll call vote.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Diadio.
Yes.
Mr. Newton.
Yes.
Mr. Travisano.
Yes.
Mr. Palenta.
Yes.
Ms. Fisher.
Yes.
Mr. Delina.
Yes.
Councilwoman Kilpatrick.
Yes.
Next, pending matters, waterfront redevelopment. Mr. Samuel.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The new developer for the National Lead site asked me to go through and meet with his professionals earlier this week. I met with them. They are not yet ready to make any type of a public meeting because they need to refine their plans. When they spoke here, they did not have their hands around the plans. They did say that they are moving ahead with Bass Pro and that they have been exchanging details of modifications that Bass Pro wants on their building, so that's a very good sign for Bass Pro. But they did say that they would need more time to go through and put together, prepare things before they can have a public presentation for us or for them. They were out at the site. They took a boat ride up and down the river because they want to focus also on the marina portion. They said to me that their priority was getting Bass Pro going, and that's what they're going to go through and focus on. And that they're trying to have their own team sit down and work out what it is that they're actually going to come back with us on. So it wasn't a long meeting. The engineer, their architect, and I think their planner were there. And I just wanted to go through and report to you. They're working on it. Positive signs. We're also getting more requests for the PDM material to come to the site. So we're getting reviews. So that means that they're gearing up. But let's face it, we're all anxious. We want it done yesterday. So
I understand they need to come here before the public presentation.
they said at the last meeting, I think it was the president indicated that he wanted to go through and have a public presentation on the project, but the staff mentioned to me during my meeting, okay, that they weren't quite ready for that. So he doesn't have any specific
That's-
date.
yeah, I know, but that wasn't my question.
Oh,
Do they understand they need to come to SERA with the presentation before the public meeting?
Absolutely, they do. I made that clear to them at the last meeting.
Okay.
Dave, can I have a quick question? On the Parkway, there's a sign. They're closing the exit to Chevalier Avenue as of tonight. How's the traffic going to get off now?
When you say they're closing the exit to Chevalier Avenue, are you talking about,
Northbound.
oh, northbound? Good question. I wasn't aware that I didn't even receive notice that they're closing. But that would mean that they'd have to either get off before that or get off at the bridge, after they cross the bridge.
Or if they cross the bridge, but the public does not know that. I mean, they're going to be riding and trying to get off and. Okay,
Rennie, I didn't know.
thought maybe.
Yeah.
Mike,
They-
you have anything?
Yeah, they have jurisdiction over their own facilities.
Oh, I understand. I just thought maybe you knew something about it.
Chairman, from the legal side on the waterfront development project, Mr. St. Ange and his client are continuing, working on documents and moving ahead as they discussed at the last meeting.
Joe, you have anything?
I'll just indicate the same thing as Mr. Baker, that they're moving along. There's contact showing that they're moving forward beyond that.
Any comments from the commissioners? Next item, Leaf Industries.
Chairman and Commissioners, we had asked or offered to Leaf Industries to come back and make a presentation and with regard to their revised application, revised proposal. They'll be here tonight. Mr. Vignola is here, his client's here, and I believe their expert is also here. And that would be under the new business portion.
Good. And PRC, River Road.
I have some discussions for River Road in executive session, and with regard to Gondak Drive, I don't know if the commissioners got a copy of a letter that was sent by.
That was included in the
That was
package.
in the, that was in the
Worsinger,
package. Mr. Wersinger's letter, I brought extra copies if you didn't have it. They provided.
Just to be clear, though, that was an old, I don't know if we're referring to the same thing here, so just to be clear.
This is on Gondak, the status of Gondak Drive.
Yes, everyone should have in their packets a status report on Gondak Drive.
And I have
Anything for the record?
I have extra copies. I think we can have the letter be part of the record, but I don't think there's anything else that needs to go. It was just a status report. I will discuss that as part of the COA litigation discussion when we
Can
go
I have
into
a copy of
executive.
that one, because I pulled it
That's
from
what
my-
they're doing right now.
That's what they're doing right now on Gondak,
Property,
yes.
okay.
Yes, the Gondak Drive report is where they are, what they've done, and where they are.
Dave, you have anything else?
Yes, on Hercules, okay, which is the next item.
No, PRC, did you?
I only will follow up on with
Okay.
Mike during closed.
All right, now Hercules, okay.
Okay. Hercules had a meet, as I reported at the last meeting, we completed our first draft of the redevelopment plan, circulated to Hercules consultants to go through and get their comments to make sure that it works for them and it works for us. We got some comments late this week, okay, and I didn't want to bring it in and discuss it and give it to you last minute. I want to go through and review their comments, see whether or not they fit, but hopefully I should be able to get you something before the next meeting, so that this way we can go through and talk about it and maybe even take action at the next meeting.
Just to remind everyone, the meeting is 2 weeks, it's a short turnaround.
Short term, yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, all I was gonna say is that we're gonna get to see that before we, you know.
That's why I didn't bring it today.
Okay,
Don.
okay.
Did you say you had discussions for Golden Age in executive session, or was that for River Road?
Yes, exactly.
For both?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Hercules? Okay. Item E, CPV Power Company easement.
Chairman, I've had a couple of phone calls with the attorney for CPV Power, as well as with Mr. St. Ange from the SSA side. CPV's attorney still needs to provide us with insurance and indemnification language. They are working on preparing documents and revising the proposed easement. We gave them the legal concerns that we had, and so the ball is in their court now.
We're going to discuss that in closed loop.
There's nothing to discuss at this point.
Wasn't there some monetary compensation we were looking for?
We can discuss that, no.
Yeah.
Once we get the document back,
Yeah.
we'll ask the commissioners to authorize an appraiser
Yeah.
to provide an appraisal for the valuation of the property. CPV has been advised they need to post a $5,000 escrow, and we're waiting on that as well.
Okay, resolution for holding a private executive meeting pertaining to litigation, personnel, contract negotiations, and property acquisition and sale. Can I have a motion to go into closed session?
Make a motion, we go in close.
Second.
Who's that? Vicky?
No.
Rosetta.
Rosetta, sorry.
Please. Rosetta, second.
An expert. Mr. Vignolo, did you
Yeah,
want
good
to?
evening. I'm here before you. Before, my name is Anthony Will, I represent the industries. This is, I'll use my word, a continuation of an application that's been pending here for some time.
Would you mind standing up and coming up? I was flying the other night, my ears are still a little
Sure.
clogged. Thank you. Thanks.
This is a continuation of our application for approval to develop property that we own. It dates back a number of years. We were here in the last time, I guess, formally in December. There's a resolution passed by this board giving us the opportunity to submit a revised plan with the determination that the number of trailers which were treated as temporary storage transportables should be reduced, and the building size should be addressed. So we've done that. We submitted a revised plan and a report from our expert, Mr. Vincenti, who's here. A comment came back from your engineer, and there was a question as to Mr. Vincenti's calculation of the requirements, the standard he used for determining that the number of trailers on site was a reasonable number, which was questioned, and so he can address that. And there was also a concern, also an issue of whether or not the number of trailers that we did propose, which was a reduced number, was adequate or was appropriate. So we have Mr. Vincenti to address those. And we're basically asking this, we increase the size of the building slightly, or we reduce the number of trailers slightly. We're asking this board simply to take action. This has taken a long time for us to get this far. We'd like you to make a decision. Win, lose, or draw, we want to get it over with so we can determine whether it's something we can live with or it's something that we'll have to litigate. We've litigated with this board previously in the past, and if that's necessary, we'll have to do it again. And we'll have to address the issues that have been raised with respect to our application. So I have Mr. Vincenti here for the purpose of addressing the issues which have been raised by your consultant, and obviously to answer any questions you may have with respect to the application.
Okay, and Tony, if you could just put on the record this building increase size, if there are any, is it a conditional increase, a straight proposed increase? Describe that for
No,
us.
it's a
And
proposed,
then-
it's a proposed increase, square footage to 17,500.
Well, hi.
Mr. Vincenti.
I'm John
You
Vincenti.
want sworn?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Tony, do you want to do the,
Sure. Raise your hand. You swear that the testimony you're about to give is proceeding to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Vincente, could you give us a quick benefit of your background so we can qualify you as a witness?
Have you testified before us?
I was here previously. I'm a licensed professional engineer, Slander in New Jersey.
Okay.
And he
I'm
I'll
also
make the
certified.
He was previously qualified?
Yeah, that's fine. Just, you can proceed.
So the last time we were here, the square footage of the building was 11,250 square feet. We've increased that size to the present concept plan to 13,125 square feet. We've also shown a potential additional expansion subject to getting some DEP approvals for wetlands that could potentially bring the size of the building to 17,500 square feet. So it was approximately a 2,000 square foot definite expansion and possibly up to the 17,500.
Thank you. And the number of spaces went from what
The
number
number
to
of
what?
on-site trailer spaces went to 50, it was reduced slightly. I don't have that number, but it was, I'm sorry, it was reduced to 46.
From what?
It was, I think it was,
It was 50.
I think it was 50.
Thank you. And Mr. Vincente, you've had the benefit of reviewing the report prepared by CME Associates?
Yes.
Dave, what's the date on that report?
Mr. CME's
Yeah.
report, that's dated June 28, 2017.
Thank you.
So when I was here previously, I had spoken very briefly about some of my observations of similar warehouse facilities, particularly in South Brunswick. Some very brief comments. In response to those comments, Mr. Samuels did an analysis of some recently approved warehouse facilities in South Brunswick and prepared a spreadsheet that provided some ratios. First thing, with respect to the ratios of building size to the number, there is no standard for that. There's no municipal standard, there's no industry standard. So in cases like this, what we rely upon is the particular user. What does that particular user require to run and operate his business? You heard testimony from Mr. Foglia as to the character of his businesses. When we also do analysis for whether it's parking demand or parking trips, traffic related, what you do is you try and look at similar type uses and project the demand, whether that's a parking demand or trip generation. So what we did here is we looked at similar types uses of occupied facilities. What Mr. Samuels did was looked at what was approved in South Brunswick, not occupied, and compared numbers based on that. My observations also included not only the approved trailer spaces, but also the loading dock spaces, because my observations are based on what the users of these types of facilities need to run their business. How many trailers do they park on the facility or use in the facility during their day-to-day operations? So the difference from what I did to what Mr. Samuel did is I used specific users that were in this business in a regional location and looked at what they need to run their business and also what Mr. Foglia needs to run his business. So it's a pinpointed, more of a pinpointed analysis rather than a general analysis. So what I've done is come up with ratios that are in the order of anywhere from 1 per 204 to about 1 per 1,162.
You say 204 and 1162 square feet?
Yes, one trailer for 204 square feet of building, up to one trailer per every 1,162 square feet. My numbers are, by the very nature, going to be lower than what Mr. Samuels did, because A, he didn't basically observe an existing facility, and B, he didn't include the trailers on the site in the loading dock areas. So I believe, what we tried to do was a more pinpointed analysis based on this particular use.
Can you describe with some detail specifically the other sites that you used as
Sure.
comparable and why you view them as comparable?
Because they're all in the same general industry where they distribute, manufacture, or recondition various types of drums and containers, whether they're steel drums or poly containers. There are 3 affiliated companies, Rawway Steel Drum, Jersey Cooperage, and Williamsport Steel, and then there are 4 other competitors, Kearney Steel, Mauser, Greif, and National Packing Services. And then I compared that, the final line to what we're proposing here.
And Jersey Cooperage, I believe, is an affiliated entity with the applicant?
Yes, Jersey Cooperage is the Sayreville site. They recondition steel drums there. Rawway Steel Drum is a facility in Cranberry where they primarily warehouse and also recondition various size containers. And Williamsport Steel Container is again located in Pennsylvania, and they primarily manufacture smaller type steel containers.
In addition to the one facility, or any of the others also affiliated with the applicant?
No, just the 3, the first 3 in my analysis.
So 3 out of
Rawway-
7 are affiliated with the applicant.
Yes. And you know what, that's really key in my mind in performing an analysis here. We have an individual business. We've been told what the requirements of this business were. Having visited these sites, I was able to verify it and see how they operate and what types of, ratios there are. And what we found is for the smaller facilities, naturally the ratio is gonna be a smaller number. If you have a larger warehouse, then the numbers tend to be closer to that 8 or 1,000 square foot range. One of the footnotes I do want to just note to the board, in an effort to be fair, the Rawway Steel Drum facility in Cranberry, right now it operates based on a certain criteria, and what we observed was 142 trailers there, but that was actually approved to have a satellite parking area that would allow up to 294 trailers, which would bring that ratio down to 1 to 381 square feet, much closer to what is being proposed at this site.
The satellite parking was not related to the principal use of the property, it was just some additional parking area?
No, it's approved. It's basically overflow parking that right now they have municipal approval. If they wanted to, they can construct that and put the additional trailers on the site. Right now, they haven't done that.
That's not quite my question. My question is the purpose of that additional site. Is it just to park vehicles, or are the vehicles being parked there related to the principal
The
operation?
trailers associated with the principal use.
Keep going, sorry.
So that, and the reason I bring that up, because that's a comparison of what was basically approved and not built, similar to what Mr. Samuels did with the South Brunswick parcels. But I didn't want to put that number in because it's not what I observed, it hasn't been constructed. But I felt it was something that I could point to that would be a similar type of analysis comparable to South Brunswick. And the location is one town. So that's really,
I had a couple follow-up questions. When you examined these sites with similar uses, how were the trailers being parked there used? What were they being used for?
Basically, they had, some of them were empty, but some of them had product in them, whether it was an inventory situation, or some of them were in process where they were full and they were going to be brought in, and whether they're refurbished or whatever. Some of them just were there for storage, because
For storage of the trailer as opposed to storage of things in the trailer?
storage of things in the trailer.
So, did you do a count, or can you, with some degree of certainty, provide us with what percentages were empty trailers where it's just a trailer, and what percentages were being used for storage, whether it's storage of untouched, finished, whatever, any type of storage? Is it 50/50, 60/40, 80? Do you have, did you do an analysis of that?
No.
Do you have a gut feel, or you don't?
No, aside from going there and opening them all up, no.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions.
Yeah, Joe?
So 3 out of 7 are they're affiliated with the applicant, correct?
Yes.
Are you saying you're amending the plan on behalf of the applicant to increase it definitely by 2,000?
The plan was already submitted, and yes.
Okay, so there's a definite increase of 11 and change to 13. 11,000 and change to 13.
Yes, that's the plan that we submitted, and it also shows the potential 4,375 that would go up to 17,500.
Now, are you representing that the applicant, if this application is approved, that they're going to pursue that, whatever needs to be done to increase the capacity of the warehouse to the 17,000?
I was directed by the client to prepare that plan with that caveat, so my understanding is he's fully prepared to implement that and seek those approvals.
Okay.
Mr.
So-
Vignell,
Yeah, we
Mr.
can
Vignell,
represent
did you
that
have
that's-
any?
Yeah, we'll represent that that's our intention.
And so we're talking about, right now, what you're saying 13, and what was it, 13,000?
13,125.
Okay, and then it was 46 spaces, right?
It's 46 trailer parking spaces and 4 loading docks, yes.
4 loading docks, okay. Now, when you visited these, you visited all 7 sites, right?
The only one I didn't really go to was the Williamsport location. Basically, I relied on some information I was given by the client because it's an affiliated one.
All right, so you visited 2 of the affiliated sites, not the 3rd.
Correct.
You visited all 4 of the others, right?
Yes.
The 4 other sites?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you visited, did you wait there and observe the operation, or you just go and check the number of trailers, loading docks, all that stuff?
I just check the number of trailers that were on the site.
All right,
At
and,
that particular time.
Okay. And the ancillary parking situation in the, what was it, South Brunswick site?
Cranberry.
Cranberry. The ancillary parking, that wasn't needed to facilitate the operation. I mean, you said there's been an approval, but it hasn't been utilized, it hasn't been built, right?
Correct.
So they don't need that based on your observations, to maintain the current operation, right?
Right now, they've chosen not to implement that. I can't make a determination on need. I don't know what their business needs are.
Okay, but they are operating, and you're basing your information based on the operation you observed without the ancillary parking, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have, and I apologize if Mr. Baker already asked this question, any idea at this site how long the potential trailers are going to be parked there that will have material in them, that isn't being offloaded to the warehouse? How long the stay is going to be?
I mean, what he may know about it as opposed to what my clients testified about?
If he doesn't, then maybe, the client would be the appropriate one.
Well, he testified already.
I already testified for that.
Oh, okay, all right. That's fine, it's been a while. You wouldn't know that, though?
No.
Okay. That's all I have.
Just to follow up for clarity, I know you didn't do a count on how many had storage and how many didn't have storage in them, but in determining your ratio that you deem is appropriate, you included trailers with and without storage in them?
Yes. And the reason being is because the business is such that they have a fleet of trucks that they go out to a third-party location, pick up the facilities, or pick up the containers, and then bring it back to their facility. So by nature, they need some empty trailers to go out and service their customers.
And is it also your observation that for their operation, they need to have some trailers that have things stored in them?
Yes.
I'm good. David, did you have any comment with regard to the testimony?
Well, Well, I think there are some comments. I did not visit any of the sites, okay? But I did go through and check with Bing aerials as well as Google aerials, and I printed out some, and I noticed that in some cases, the square footage that you have of the buildings, because in some cases there's, like in Williamsport, there's a number of buildings, and I couldn't tell which building you were referring to, but Williamsport, you said you weren't there. And as well as some of the other site, the Kearney site also is a situation where there's an awful lot of trailers on the site. Maybe they're not all in that particular use, but there's a lot of square footage of building area. So that when you measure the square footage of building area, I couldn't get a correlation with your numbers in a number of those, because if I totaled up all the buildings and totaled up all the trailers, I did not get a correlation.
Okay, well, can I ask a question? Are those photographs going to be offered into evidence for this board's consideration? Because I'd like to have Mark, and we'd also like to have Mr. Singles testify as to what he calculated the square foot of those buildings to be in order to have any reliance upon his testimony as to whether the number of trailers is appropriate in connection with the size of the building. So if he's not going to do any of that, then I guess you just disregard everything you just said.
Well, if the board wants me to do that, I can do that. Okay, my focus was not to go through and spend a lot of time on that, because I wasn't going to. I basically indicated to you that I did not inspect the sites, and I could not go through and determine what building was specifically used, because there's multiple uses on the site. But I can go through and say that the aerials don't necessarily go through and correlate to the numbers that are on the plans from the standpoint of the building size. That's not really as much of an issue as what our report focuses on. Our report is focused on the fact that you have a small warehouse with a very large parking lot. You say that you reduced the number of parking spaces from your last plan, but the parking lot is the same size, you just changed the striping on it. So it's a misnomer from the standpoint of whether you can really say that the parking has been reduced. So I think there's two issues that we have to look at. And one issue is how many trailers does the board feel should be on the site? And the second issue is an ordinance issue. It is not my issue, but it's an ordinance issue, and that is merely the fact that the redevelopment ordinance says that you can't have transportables on the site. Not my issue, the ordinance.
David, with regard to the striping, if the application is going, if the board's going to take action and approve it, would you have some recommendation with regard to striping versus number of trucks allowed on the site for parking purposes?
Well, from the standpoint, if the board is approving a plan that has a certain number of striped parking spaces, then that should be the maximum amount of trailers that is permitted on the site.
So parking only in striped spaces?
Parking only in striped spaces. Otherwise, you could go through and cover the lot and probably have twice as many trailers on the site.
Tony, I'm not asking you to commit to a number of trailers at the moment, but would your client commit to parking within the striped areas?
That's the intention, that's why they're striped. These
Well,
are- Again, we disagree.
Intention is one thing. Would they, if there's a condition of approval, and again, you're not asking you to agree on a number, if there's a condition of approval that says whatever the number turns out to be, your client will only agree to have vehicles parked within the striped areas, would they commit to that?
Would we agree to that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's our intent, I'll say it again, our intention with respect to this application is that the number of trailers would be limited to the number of spaces that are designated.
All right. I'm not trying to give you a hard time. You're a very good trial lawyer. You said intention 2 or 3 times. Is the answer yes?
The answer is yes.
Good. Thank you.
But, Mr.
So,
Sin-
David,
yeah, I'd like those pictures marked. I will also, may I say for the record that we've referred to Mr. Vincenti's report, but I don't know if that was marked as an exhibit. It should be marked as an exhibit. And Mr. Samuel's report commenting upon, which brings us here tonight, should also be marked as an exhibit.
They can be marked as an exhibit, as with a normal planning board application, the things that you filed with us. The revised map and the report we're considering part of the record, and also considering Mr. Samuel's report of June 28th, I believe, as part of the record. Is that good enough, or do you
Yes.
want to? Okay. David, up to you if you want to have those aerials marked. And
Doesn't matter to me. If the board wants them marked, they can be marked.
the more the better.
Okay.
Do you want to just identify them?
Sure.
And
First
we'll-
is an aerial, 1 inch is equal to 200 feet. This is an aerial photo, railway steel drum. Next one is an aerial, 1 inch is equal to 100 feet, Jersey cooperage. The next one is an aerial, 1 inch is equal to 200 feet, Williamsport steel container. Next one is an aerial Kearney steel container, 1 inch is equal to 100 feet. Next one is Mauser Corp., 1 inch is equal to 200 feet. Next one is Grief Incorporated, 1 inch is equal to 100 feet. Next one is National Packaging Services, 1 inch is equal to 400 feet. This is just a aerial of Leaf site, 1 inch is equal to 200 feet.
And David, what's the total number of pages?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay, I counted with my fingers, I got the same number, just wanted to.
Okay, pass that
So
down to Mike.
we'll mark those, SERA 1 through 8. And the source of those, Dave?
Source of those are either Bing or Google aerial mapping.
Okay, while Joe's doing that, did you have any other testimony?
But, no, I have no further testimony, but I just indicate for the record that we haven't seen those, we haven't referred to earlier before this evening, and, you know, my position is, I don't even know whether or not Mr. Samuels is the one that accumulated those documents. It was done by someone else. We have all kinds of evidentiary questions, and I'm object to the consideration, but certainly, you should certainly mark them.
Thank you, and I'll just say for the record that we're not in court, and as with other land use boards, the rules of evidence are generally relaxed. Mr. Vignolo will be happy to give you a set of these. Also, I think it's likely that the board, I don't want to anticipate what the board's going to do, but it's likely that they're not going to take action tonight. We've already had a deliberative session, but the good news is next month is a short meeting, and our next meeting is June 9th. I'm sorry, November 9th. I wish it was June 9th. November 9th.
Okay.
It's just,
Can I just clarify, I think what Mr. Samuel was getting at is some of the locations that have multiple buildings. And for instance, the site up at Seacrest. It's a longer
Just
build.
identify what name.
Okay, so that's item number 7, National Packaging Services, Seacrest. It's a very long building. Okay. So in order for me to verify the square footage, I did a number of things. First of all, I checked the website of the company. Okay, the website basically says they have a 100,000 square foot facility. Okay, that building is probably 300 square feet. So when I went out there, to the best of my ability, I was able to document not only what portion of that building they used, but also what portion of the site was used for their trailers. It's the best that I could. And I did that with at least 2 others. The Kearney Steel container in Newark, Mauser in Woodbridge.
And how did you do it? Did you speak?
Well, basically, it was physical observations, looking at tax maps, trying to put property lines together, looking at tax records that showed what the building square footages are, and then supplementing that with my visual observations.
Did you speak to anyone at those facilities where there were multiple users to find out what portion?
No, but in the Secaucus ones, it was pretty obvious where the brick was. And it was verified by their website, which said 100,000 square feet. So that's how I did it. It was not just relying on aerial photos that didn't really show where where the property lines were, and going out there and verifying it to the best that we could. So I'm comfortable that the numbers I presented are relatively accurate where I have order of magnitude. You know, there were some inconsistencies that I also saw on Mr. Samuel's numbers, one of which was not, in my opinion, counting the loading spaces that, in my observations, are appropriate, which led to the ratios being dissimilar. And also, there was at least one location where, based on my research, the Heller Park North, they based their ratio on a building of 385,000 square feet, 385, 362, and from what I was able to determine, that number is incorrect. It's 285, 362. So that would again result in a ratio that is significantly different. It's calculated based on what I believe the true square footage of the building to be, and an appropriate way of including not only the designated parking spaces, but the loading spaces that we would traditionally expect to have vehicle trailers parked in. So those are some of the basic issues that I felt related to the fact that Mr. Samuel's numbers were significantly different than mine, and also based on the methodology as well.
Mr. Vincenti, with regard to one particular site, Grief Incorporated, okay, is that building that you have listed here as 63,500 square feet this same building that's in this area?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
Because that building at least scales a lot larger than 63,000 square feet by a magnitude of probably 2.
I'm basing it on that. You know, I'm relying on my number.
Where did you
Well,
get the number from?
Mr. Chairman, I think we could go through and probably pick
One
each,
another, absolutely.
one another
And that's
for
not
the
my
entire
intent.
night.
That's not
okay?
my intent.
From the standpoint, the basis of our report was when we went back to South Brunswick to look at those plans, and that was in the previous report, not this most recent report, we found that it didn't correlate with the numbers that Mr. Vincenti gave us. That's why we did that. Then when we got the next report, the agency asked me to go through and look at the revised report from Mr. Vincenti, and that's why we wound up going through and printed out the aerials. We did not go out here, but there is a lot bigger building here, as an example on Grief, than on some of the others. I think the question really is, when you're talking about the size building that we have, what's realistic with regard to the amount of parking? I respect Mr. Vincenti for going through and saying, for his particular client's use, he may want that, or he may need that, okay, because he's using it in other sites. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the standard for the development, what the developer would like to go through and have. It's got to be in relation. If this is a redevelopment zone, the reason it's before this agency rather than a planning board was because it's part of an economic development program for the borough. And that, from the standpoint as it relates to the only two issues that I have is the parking lot seems to be too large for the warehouse. I respect them for increasing the size of the warehouse. I think that's a good first step. I just think that from the standpoint of the amount of pavement that they have is too much, and that in the future, you can park a lot more trailers on it than that which they're proposing. And the second item is the compliance with the ordinance.
Meaning with regard to the use of the transportables. Okay. Anything else, Tony?
That's all we have, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Chairman is probably likely to discuss this at our next meeting in November and then make a decision.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank,
November 9th.
yeah, not June 9th.
Okay. All right, PRC River Road.
Nothing further.
Well, we don't have any formal, I put that in there as a placeholder in case we had a formal resolution, Mr. Chairman.
And C, resolution approving the 2018 budget of SERA Economic Redevelopment Agency.
Yes, as the agency is familiar, we have a proposed budget. It has to be accepted by the agency, which we're asking them to do, for you to do today. We submit it to the state, and they review it and determine if it's appropriate on their end, and it comes back to us for final approval. So we're asking you you've all obviously reviewed the budget since it was submitted in the packets, and asking for your approval of the budget to submit to the state.
Have a motion to approve the budget?
Make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I have just one minor change. Section N4, second page, my last name is spelled incorrectly.
Make a motion, we fix Rosetta's last name and we
Approve the budget.
N4?
N4 and roll
Approve the
call.
budget. Do you have a second on the budget?
Second.
Oh, wait a minute, make sure you put Rosetta's,
With Rosetta's correction.
with Rosetta's.
Did we have it right on the first page? We did, right?
Yes, you do.
Roll call, please.
Good catch.
Mr. Diario?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Alexano?
Yes.
Mr. Orlando?
Yes.
Ms. Bishop?
Yes.
Mr. Zerino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kilpatrick?
Yes.
Any comments from the commissioners?
Yeah, I do, about our bylaws. Question about whether we're gonna change some of our bylaws to get into some kind of conformity. So
Mr.
that-
Vice Chairman, it's an excellent question.
So that all of us have an understanding as to what really goes on here.
The executive director has tasked me,
Who doesn't know?
and I have tasked my partner Anthony to come back to the commissioners with bylaws that conform to our practices for your
To our
review and
practices and
approval.
some of the things we would like to have in.
For your review and approval.
Our review and approval, because in the listing of our bylaws right now, it says executive director's report, it's number 8, right? Report. That means to tell us everything that transpires that we're paying this for, and
I think we
comes to
understand.
you guys.
I think
And
we
there's also number
understand
12 is legal report.
Which you pretty much get every meeting.
Yeah, but we don't get what you really did. Yes, we do the bill list, and then there's things that you're talking to people, just like I said before, it's like, you know, you had, in there, like, you had paperwork and stuff that came from the new developer, and then you call Joe, and these guys, you don't tell us what's going on with that. We don't know that
Happy to
stuff.
answer
We
any.
don't know that.
Happy
And
to
then-
answer.
And then when you guys have meetings, we don't know.
Happy to answer any questions. You just have to realize
Yes.
that things are written that way because of the attorney-client privilege.
That I understand.
And those
That I
discussions would happen
understand.
in executive session.
That's right. And we also have a subcommittee which should be involved in meetings that are transpiring go on, in my view. Maybe nobody else cares, but I do.
That would be up to your chairman. And the
No, that's
commissioner.
up
That's
to
not
us.
up to me.
That's up to us.
And I said the chairman and your commission.
The commissioners decide.
Yep. Mr. Newman's correct. Mr. Newton. Anything, other comments from the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to ask Mr. Newton. Newton.
Wait a minute. You gave me a new name. Alfred E.
I just
Newman?
have a quick question.
Yes.
You've been on the planning board for how many years now?
18. I was on the planning board for 18 years.
You've been on the planning board.
Yes.
There's a problem within the town with regards to COA. Why hasn't the planner been tasked with
What planner?
providing?
Who's planner?
The planning board planner.
Well, I'm not on the planning board.
I think you said you was on the.
I said I
No,
was on the
he
planning
hasn't
board
been
for
on
18
it.
years. Now I'm here.
Hasn't been
Okay.
on.
He hasn't been on in about
And you're right, there is a
12 years.
problem. You're right, because that's what created the problem with COA.
That's right, if Mr. Newman and I were still on the planning board.
You wouldn't have this problem.
Wouldn't have this problem.
I'll withdraw-
You had two professionals
I'll
come up
withdraw
with
my
a plan that
question.
nobody had any input into. Nobody had any input into.
Dave, is there anything going on with the Pank? Someone asked me about it.
I'm sorry, with
Peter
Peter
Pank?
Nothing that I'm aware of. There was an approval on that site.
Yeah, there was a.
For what?
That was the Wawa gas station,
Right.
I think, and I think there was another use with the
A
Wawa
bank,
gas
was it?
station.
Was there a bank with that?
I don't know.
No bank.
It was a store, the gas
Store,
station and the
convenience
store has to be
store.
before the
Gas
zoning
station
board.
and a store, that's
Because
what.
it's really becoming an eyesore up there with all the graffiti and everything.
Yeah.
Someone asked about, all right, any other
They were
comments?
very anxious to move, they must be getting their financing or something. That's probably what the holdup is.
Motion up to the public,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. Motion to close the public portion,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it, thank you very much.